Hi guys. I unexpectedly had a bit of free time, an hour or so this afternoon that I wasn't expecting because I had all my work done and my daughter was taking a nap. So I decided I would play around a little bit with Jasmine's piece and see if I could show you some of the things that I was talking about today or that I was alluding to that I had planned to do in class on Thursday, but now I thought, well, maybe I can give you a bit of a head start on it by showing you via a quick video. I downloaded Jasmine's piece, and I want to emphasize something to you guys here. What follows is about an hour's worth of work. If you have a piece as far along as Jasmine's is, even though there's things that you need to correct, the beauty of Photoshop is you can make these corrections really very quickly if you're understanding how to think about the lighting. If you're not understanding how to think about the lighting, you're still going to be having problems, So obviously, I have an advantage over you guys in terms of experience and stuff. But I want to show you kind of how close it is and see if this gives you any ideas as to how to treat your own piece. Yeah, again, this was only about an hour's worth of work. And the thing that I would emphasize, let me just show you kind of where I started. So the first thing I thought was, well, for this to be a moonlight scene, it was far too bright. So the first thing I did was dropped in a multiply layer, just showing, I not a fully dark layer, but kind of adjusting all the values downward to a degree that I wanted. And then the next thing that I did, I think this was the lightning layer. The sky is almost always going to be darker than the land, whether it's a night sky or whether it's a daytime sky. And so I selected all the what looked like night sky areas, and I brought them up a little bit so that here you can see what this looks like. Now you look at those and you think, man, those are really bright. But I want to show you something here. Notice I have the eyedropper, and imagine what value you think that shape is. And now I'm going to hold it down so you can see what value it actually is. It looks like a really bright gray, but when you click on it, the top half hemisphere, that dark gray, that is the color of that swatch. The bottom is white, and the total circle, I think, is like a kind of a middle gray, or the desktop gray. So you can see that what looks like a very bright swatch is actually a very dark area. But because it's surrounded by all this dark, you don't read it that way. Okay? So when you look at these, you can see how dark even these ones over here probably are. Okay, not as dark, but you guys can get the idea. You'd never guess that that one was that dark. So I did that. Then with that in mind, actually the trees in the distance are too bright. They're in the distance, and they're reflecting very little light back to the viewer, so that means they're going to be dark. So I darken those up, and if I toggle that back off and on, you can notice that I extended it down kind of to the horizon. Alright, then I faded it out, and then I added in the moonlight. Now moonlight is going to act just like sunlight, with the exception that it isn't as powerful, but it's going to still light up a side of the form, so I imagine it coming from the left hand side. And you can see it turning on and off. And then, this is kind of maybe where I might leave a black and white version, except for a lot of additional painting. But as far as general concept, that would communicate that. But then for kicks, I thought, well, let's try a color version and see what we can do with color. So I dropped in a blue layer, again set to multiply, just to see if I could create a kind of color version of the moonlight. And I want to emphasize, this is not any good. This is nowhere close to finished. But just as an example demo. So this is equivalent to putting a glaze across a traditional painting, like an ultramarine glaze, and then rubbing out a few of the lights. And then, to save some time, I wasn't quite happy with the background, and I do not want you to do this, but to just save some time, I dropped in a star photograph back there, and I'll toggle it on and off. And the reason why is because this, I only had an hour or so, and this is the kind of thing that to do it right actually takes forever. So I just dropped a star background back there. And again, that's nowhere close to what I would actually do if I were planning to work with this, but it gives you an idea of kind of how I envisioned it. And then if you look on the left-hand side over here, I wanted to give the sensation of the moonlight coming from the left a little more powerfully than coming from the right. So, I put in that tone over there. And then I wasn't quite happy once I put that in with the power of the highlights, so I just strengthened them a little bit here with the last layer. And then again, this is very crude. This is extremely crude and nowhere close to what I'm looking for. To compare it to the egg demo, it's about where the egg demo was after 5 minutes, and then I spent another hour and a half working on it to tinker with it. But like we were talking today, this is akin to washing the car rather than detailing it. But it's it gives you an idea of what it might look like clean. To continue the analogy. Now, if you're wondering, well, if you're curious, take all those steps individually don't seem like all that much, but then when you look at the cumulative effect, here you're starting to get a sensation of light, flawed as it is. But now compare this to the original version and you can get a sense of how far it's come in just an hour. So take a look. I'm going to toggle it on and off. So here's the adjusted version, and then here's the original version. So do you see how much more of a sense of light there is? And that's kind of what I want you to be paying attention to. I want your comps, I want your paintings to have that sense of illumination, to have that sense of things make sense atmospherically. We get a sense of where the light is coming from, or what the lighting conditions are, that kind of thing. So anyway, I hope that helps you guys develop your pieces, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on them Thursday. Get a lot of work done. Talk to you soon.